Hello, thank you for joining us today. We are the teen librarians with Arapahoe Libraries, bringing books for eighth graders or anyone who likes young adult books. You might find something you like in this round that we have for you. So we're going to get started.
So I'm going to talk about Winter, White, and Wicked, which is a good choice if you are looking for sort of a page turner, a little bit bleak, lots of magic, a good adventure story. This one would be a good choice. There's a pull quote on the back of the book that says this is like Frozen meets Mad Max Fury Road. I'm not convinced that that is a great description, but this book does center winter, and there is a giant like truck rig that's part of the story. So your mileage may vary, but I will say I really enjoyed the premise. The premise is this book is set on this island. The main character who's on the cover of the book, her name is Sylvia, and she is a driver. She drives a rig, and there's this world or this island has sort of a magic system that is tied into winter as sort of a deity. I don't know how to say that word, but sort of as she's not exactly a god, but she is both the embodiment of the weather and magic, sort of a magical presence on the island. And Sylvie has this connection with winter. Winter kind of talks in her head very frequently, and she has sort of the favor, winter's favor. And at the beginning of the book, Sylvie's best friend has kind of disappeared. She's left. Her name's Lenore, and Sylvie thinks that she left with this person to head to a rebel base that's somewhere on the island where there's a rebellion against the ruling government. And she desperately wants to find, this is her best friend, they're practically sisters. She wants to bring her back. So she teams up, reluctantly, but she teams up with a smuggler and a couple of his sort of like his hench people, I don't know what you want to call them. And the three of them team up with Sylvie because they've asked her to tow, like to pull with her rig, their cargo. And if she will help them deliver it, they will lead her to this rebel base. So they team up, they set out, and the rest of the story is essentially a breakneck truck thing through. The truck has like all these enhancements to make it more stable and to work in this icy world. It's got diamond tipped blades on the side, just all these things. And things, as you might imagine, go poorly. But it is a really good adventure story. My heads up for content warning would be it's extremely violent. There are wolves, there's body parts, there's monsters, all sorts of things. And the other content warning would be there is a mention of sexual assault as well. So know that going in, but if you're looking for kind of a really cold adventure story, this would be a good choice.
The Awakening of Malcolm X is a historical fiction story that's actually written by his daughter, Ilyasa Shabazz, and Tiffany Jackson. And it was one that I found fascinating because it gives a first-hand account, really first-person narrative about his adolescent years in jail. So when Malcolm X, he was born Malcolm Little, was young, he was convicted of a crime of armed robbery and was actually sent to prison for several years. And it was during those formative years in prison that he started to discover a lot of the teachings and other things that informed the rest of his life. So this is a fascinating story. It talks about his time in isolation because he spent a lot of time in solitary confinement. It talks about the conditions of the prison where he was sentenced. And for a brief time, he was transferred to another prison that had slightly more relaxed restrictions, essentially. But he actually made the conscious decision to go back to the other prison because he recognized that he could make a greater impact there. And so this is a really fascinating story that tackles a lot of hard conversations like racism and prison reform, as he was a formidable, I guess, proponent of civil rights. And he was one of the leaders of the civil rights movement later in his life. And this is a fascinating look at how he got to be the powerful man that he was. So if you're looking for something that will give you that kind of insight into a piece of our history, I highly recommend The Awakening of Malcolm X.
Wings of Ebony is a really good urban fantasy. If you like books like The Hate You Give and you like fantasy, this is a really good matchup of both of those. types of books. So it's about Rue and her younger sister, Tasha, and they are devastated when their mother is killed pretty much on their front porch. So I will warn you, there is a bit of violence throughout the book. And one thing that made matters worse is that they were both sent to live with their fathers. They have different fathers. And so Tasha was taken to Houston, to live with her father. And then Rue was sent to live with her father, who she's never met, didn't know much about. And it's on this hidden island, Gilson, and there's magic there. And she didn't know this, but she is technically half god and half human. Her father is very powerful in this other world. You can see on the cover those golden bands, those kind of help pull the magic with the ancestors, and they're part of that world that she is starting to learn about. So she's without her sister, she's feeling a bit stressed, but she meets Bree, who lives there, and Bree takes her under her wing essentially and helps guide her through this world. And Bree makes gadgets, and she helps her be able to travel back to see her sister in time for the year anniversary of their mother's death. It's very important to her that she lets her know that she is alive. They haven't been able to see each other. You're not supposed to leave this island once you get there because they want to protect their magic. It's very dangerous, possibly deadly if they touch a human as well. She's not sure what happens. But once she gets there, she realizes that the whole neighborhood's in ruin. There's a lot of crime, there's a lot of death. The people who she loves are being impacted by, especially her sister, who they seem to try to be taking her on. A lot of Black teens in particular are being recruited to sell drugs, and there's this crime. And so there's a lot that's really, really devastating. So that's another content warning for you as well. But she's decided she's going to stay, and she's going to help fight for the neighborhood because there seems to be something connecting where her father's from and the magic to where they are now in Houston. And so she is trying to do all she can to not only protect her sister, but the whole neighborhood. It was such an awesome place to be growing up, and she wants to kind of help protect that. So if you're interested in any of that, any magical, all of the twists, it is really good. It's a lot about family, protecting your family, friends, and just getting to know both sides of yourself, because she had no idea she was part God as well. So that's Wings of Ebony.
So Eat and Love Yourself is a graphic novel about Mindy. And Mindy is a woman in her 20s, and she is kind of struggling with a host of sort of body related stuff. She has kind of body dysmorphia. And if you aren't familiar with that, it's where you view yourself. Like when you look in the mirror, what you see and what you picture as your body is not what your actual body looks like. So you picture yourself usually much heavier than you actually are, or you picture features of your body being more pronounced or more noticeable than they actually are to other people. And so she's kind of dealing with that. She's also dealing with some eating disorders. So there's a big content warning on this one for eating disorders. There's a lot going on in here about those. She's struggled with bulimia for a long time. And there's kind of some conversation around other eating disorders as well. But she is otherwise like there's a lot going on. She's struggling with a lot of those things, but she does have some really wonderful friends. She has a job that she doesn't dislike, and she's kind of living her life when she buys this chocolate bar that she finds at a convenience store. And the first time she takes a bite of it, something strange happens where she is sort of almost watching herself like as a kid in her past, and this whole sort of scene from her past plays out, and Mindy is like trying to figure out what's going on because she's really confused, but she's seeing this sort of scene from when she was a kid happen. And the more candy she eats, every time she eats a little bit of this chocolate bar, she gets almost like zoop, like pulled back into her past to something that happened. And so this is sort of the story of her navigating that and trying to figure out what's going on, but also trying to deal with some of the crummy stuff that she is kind of coping with around her body and things like that. So it's really interesting. The art is gorgeous. And it does deal, like I said, it does deal with some of those heavier topics, but I think it's ultimately a hopeful story. And it is not a story that deals with suicide or anything like that. So it's interesting, and I highly recommend it if you're looking for one of those more magical realism stories.
Seasons of the Storm is a great choice if you loved Percy Jackson and are looking for something for slightly older audiences that's very similar. It is actually kind of a retelling of Jack Frost with Greek mythology mixed in, but it definitely made me think about the Percy Jackson series and Heroes of Olympus series, because the main bad guy in this story is Kronos, who, if you're familiar, you will remember from those stories. But this story follows Jack, who dies in a ski accident in the late 1980s. And at the moment of his death, he is approached by Gaia, the mother of the earth, if you're familiar with Greek mythology, and she makes a deal with him. He is charged with becoming one of the seasons that we experience on Earth, and he will be able to then be immortal. However, the catch is he's going to become winter, but for the rest of his existence, he is going to be hunted and killed every year by spring. And he, in turn, has to hunt and kill autumn every single year. And so the story then picks back up roughly 30 years later. He's been doing this for all of that time. He doesn't age. And essentially, in between his seasons, he goes back to this training ground or the campus where all of the seasons live when they're not out in the world. And what you discover is that over time, he has fallen in love with spring, which is forbidden because they're not supposed to even speak to one another, much less fall in love. And so this is a story that's got lots of action and adventure. There's some romance in it. And I found the bits where it pulls in some of that Greek mythology with parts of fairy tales really fascinating.
The Downstairs Girl is a really good historical fiction book, and it's about what it's like to be Chinese American around 1890s in Atlanta. That's when it's set. And Jo, during the day, she's a lady's maid for a very wealthy man's daughter. And she's not treated very well. The daughter has her lie a lot about where they are, because she's kind of the escort around town. Because you had to be you couldn't be alone with a male. And so she is going around town, and she's like her partner as they go shopping. But they go to some more shady places. And so she is left to kind of be in deceit when it asked about what they did that day. It's not a good feeling for her, but it's the position that she's in. And when she goes home, they live under a print shop in this abandoned kind of area, and they're not hiding there, but they live there without anyone knowing, her and her adopted father. And they can hear everything that's happening in the print shop, and they overhear that they're not doing very well, and they might have to close the print press. And this would be devastating, right? Because no one knows they're down there. They'd have to find somewhere else to live. And so Jo decides that she's going to start writing a advice column, and she's going to go under the name Miss Sweetie. And so she sends this proposal to them, secretly leaves it on the doorstep with a sample column. It's a hit. People are loving it. They want to send questions for the advice. They start flooding in. Everything from questions about relationships, horse races, and then it changes to political matters, things that are about different race, things that are happening with races within the city. And so she has this platform now where she can share her advice, her side of the story, her answers to these questions in this advice column. And it's really eye-opening for everyone. No one knows she's Chinese American. During this time, they were looked down upon. And so it's very important for her to share this, even though they don't know who's representing the opinions. It's super important for her to kind of express this, because it's a different way of thinking. Everyone seems to be thinking differently than her. And so she's very excited about the opportunity, and it seems to be working. So see what that looks like for Jo to kind of change from her day job to writing these, and see what questions you get. You do get to hear what's being written in, and then you get to hear her responses as she's writing them because you're in her mind. It is a really well-written story. I really enjoyed it. Jo is so awesome. Kind of the way she's trying to help people see and think differently. I just really enjoyed. So that is The Downstairs Girl. All right. Thank you for joining us today. Those are all of our books that we have for you. And we hope you found something to add to your to-read list. Have a great day. Bye.